With everyone's eyes focused on Shohei Ohtani, a lot of Angel fans knew about it, but then didn't think about David Fletcher getting traded and Max Stassi getting traded. What's all that about? I mean, our hearts are broken, but now David Fletcher's not here? Like, stomp on our head now. I mean, that's terrible, right? That's awful. Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every single day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, I'm in my my father-in-law's man cave here. He's got some cool digs here. There's like a TV, one of those like simulated fireplaces, just over there. So
wow, you're not going to want to go home.
I know. I think I might just move in. So there you go.
Perfect.
Hey, it's our second off season here on Locked On Angels with you, and we're grateful that you make us part of your day each and every weekday. Of course, we're down to 3 episodes a week during the off season, but Mike and I are going to be doing some short form content in the interim as well. If you didn't catch yesterday's first ever quick hits here on Locked On Angels, we did a little deep dive into the Ohtani contract situation and specifically how that, might have impacted his deal with the Angels, if there was one and whatnot. But I think the biggest question that we answered yesterday, Mike, was the luxury tax issue and how, moving forward, his contract deals and plays into the luxury tax with the Dodgers. Some weird shenanigans going on there, but check that out if you haven't done so already. We got a full episode today for you on Locked On Angels. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Halos needing a frontline starter. What does the phrase pretty much set mean for the Halos 1 through 9? We heard that floating around yesterday. But first, Mike, some sad news. Max Stassi and David Fletcher were both traded before the Ohtani news came out. And so, gosh, talk about getting kicked when you're down. Of course, it was kind of a flip-flop because in 24 hours, we lost Fletcher, Stassi, and Ohtani. So let's get into what that is, what that means. And with Ohtani off the market, the big question is, what now for the Halos? And of course, it starts with those moves that Perry Manassian made, right?
Yeah, he's made a lot of small moves. Like we've seen some depth moves, we've seen some minor league signings, and then we've also seen some bullpen signings, but nothing that you would consider as a big splash. And I think that's made us all kind of nervous. But I guess it depends on how you're going to see 2024, right? You and I have said, hey, no expectations. Well, you've said that. I'm like, no, let's go all in. But the truth is that I think that we're probably getting a sense of what Perry is going to do this offseason. And this move was interesting, John, with Fletcher and Stassi getting traded to the Braves, and then Stassi gets flipped to the White Sox for a player to be named later. It's kind of a bummer because we've all fallen in love with David Fletcher. And of course, last season, there was a lot of contract manipulation talk around why he's not on this roster. And
trying to keep him under the 5 years of service time so that if they want to move him back to AAA, he can't, request his release and get signed somewhere else. And so there was a lot of trying to keep him under that service time so that they had more roster flexibility. But Mike, it's just kind of the culmination of a lot of what was wrong with the Angels is that they had no roster flexibility last year. Like Jaime Barria, God bless him. I know he's with the Guardians now on a minor league deal, but they couldn't move him because he had no more options left.
Right.
And he's like one of those guys that you don't really consider an important part of your team. But when you consider a whole 26-man roster, like you need your Jaime Barrias to come out and eat up innings so that you don't use your good arms for when you actually need your good guys out there on the mound. And so that's kind of where the Angels have been. They don't have a lot of flexibility with their roster moves. And I think David Fletcher was kind of a victim of that.
Yeah, and I think there's this Max Stassi move as well, which, by the way, I was a huge fan when he came over because he played really well for us. Obviously, had a really tough year in 22 and then didn't play this year because of the family issues. And we found out that his baby was born premature and had a lot of issues and is doing so much better, which is great. And then getting him flipped to the White Sox for a player to be named later, the Braves are just trying to move some pieces around. So, John, a couple questions that I'd love for us to work through here. What type of move was this? I know you just touched on some of it, but do you think this is a money saving move, or is this a freeing up money to make bigger moves type of move?
Well, it's interesting to me because when you consider that David Fletcher and Max Stassi both got moved, and in return they got Evan White, who was a top prospect with the Mariners. In fact, if you didn't know this, they actually paid Evan White his contract and signed him to it before he even made his debut in the major leagues, Mike. And so they were very confident that he was going to be, a future piece for them. That I think that was pre-2019, I want to say, that they gave him that contract. Mike, Evan White came up in 2020 and got a Gold Glove at first base.
That's right.
Which is pretty crazy. And so here's the main thing from that. David Fletcher and Max Stassi, when you moved them over to the Braves and you got the reliever and you got Evan White back, you essentially saved $7 million toward the luxury tax. Now, remember, this all occurred before Ohtani signed.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Angels were trying to save some money toward the luxury tax kind of gave us all the indication of like, hey, maybe they're aiming for something big here. Maybe they're trying to go for Ohtani, or maybe it's another player that they want to have some luxury tax space for. So all that to say, Stassi and Fletcher moving to the Braves, and I know the Braves flipped Stassi, it saved the Angels about $7 million toward the luxury tax. And we all know that they do everything within their power to stay under that $237 million threshold. That's the first threshold toward the luxury tax before they have to start paying penalties. And I think that this is a cost-saving move. At the same time, I did reach out to our friends over at Locked On Mariners on Twitter, and I said, guys, is there any hope for Evan White? And they responded like, yes, he is a hard worker. The guy's been injured the last few seasons, and so he has never really done well at the major league level. He hasn't played the last 2 seasons in the majors. He's been in the minor leagues. The key thing there is they said he needs to stop sacrificing contact for power. And if you go look at some Evan White highlights, you can see the dude has got some pop.
Yeah.
But if there's, I'm encouraged by the fact that they said there's still hope for him, and by the fact that with the coaching staff that we have, maybe they can identify something in Evan White, help him make a little bit more contact, maybe at the sacrifice of that power. But Mike, he's a right-handed first baseman, and we know that we have Drury, who's right-handed, who's going to be at second base primarily, but you need somebody to maybe platoon with Nolan Shawnuel, who, gets on base and takes the walks and can hit you those singles and doubles. But in the 29 games. In the 29 games that he played, he didn't have a great showing against left-handed pitching. So perhaps Evan White can be a solution there. Now, the weird thing is, Mike, and I want to get your question about this, or your answer to this question, Perry Manassian is the one who signed Fletcher and Stassi to their extensions. And so it's strange to me that suddenly we're moving on from those guys.
Yeah, with Fletch, it's interesting because he was performing and he was somebody we were really excited about. But John, quite honestly, he wasn't performing at the major league level and he was hurt a lot as well. And so I think that played into it. I know that there's that roster conversation about his contract and all of that. I'm sure that had some factors in as well. And then with Max Stassi, I think Stassi was a great starter for us when we needed him to be and would be a great backup to Ohtani. But when you talk about roster flexibility, I think the move of Stassi is because we can't do much, if anything at all, with Theis right now. Theis has got to be on the major league roster.
Right. And he's out of options.
And he really didn't have a terrible year last year learning how to play catcher. And he had some key moments where he hit a home run. I was at one of those games where it was so fun to see him hit a home run. And I was not a huge fan at the time of Theis, but he also can play a bit of first base. Now, he is a left-handed hitter, so it doesn't necessarily help the Angels lineup if he's subbing out Shonowell. But I think Fletcher just kind of fell out of favor with how they were trying to approach what they wanted to do with this roster. And because he wasn't performing, it just made it more difficult to keep him in that starting rotation and in the starting lineup and on the major league roster. And I think that's why Squid was playing, even though he was terrible. They were doing some contract stuff, but then also he just wasn't coming through the way that they were hoping for. So kind of a bummer to see him go, bummer to see Stassi go. How do you feel about Ohtani and Theis as a 1-2 punch?
I would much rather see like Ohtani start, of course, but I was kind of hoping we'd see Stassi because he's the experienced veteran. Like he's the guy that knows the staff very well. I will say, if you look at their defensive metrics, I want to say that Theis is actually defensively the better catcher. I'll have to confirm that on the Baseball Savant page, of course.
Yeah.
But statistically, I think Theis does make for a better backup than Stassi would. Mike, I think the emergence of Rengifo really took the spot of David Fletcher.
Yeah.
And we all know that Rengifo's defense is not the greatest. But in terms of being able to play third, shortstop, second, outfield, that's kind of what Fletcher was able to do as well. Now, Fletcher, defensively, way better than
much
Rengifo.
better. Yeah.
But I think what the Angels are really needing is production, and they need production out of those kind of guys.
And he's a switch hitter. You know, he can
bat. And
bat
he's
right,
a switch hitter, yeah.
Left. Yeah.
Even though I think he should only bat from the right, but that's just
he's a lot better from the right. Yeah.
Mike, what happens? Is it Stefanik? Is it Soto? I mean, what do we do in terms of a bench piece here?
Yeah, I think it's Stefanik, and I think that you have to have him up there. And I've kind of been banging that drum for a bit because he is a contact guy, and he proved that he is really flexible in wherever he needs to be on that infield. And he played third base a bit last season, and I love that they tried him there. I'd be shocked if he's not on this bench. Now, if the Angels go and make some moves and add some pieces, then that wouldn't shock me to have him in the minor leagues. Right. But I think Stefanik has to be on this bench if the Angels are going to perhaps, stand pat with who they have in that starting nine.
Well, that's a good question there, Mike, because coming up on Locked On Angels, we got a report from Ken Rosenthal that the Halos starting nine is pretty much set. Is that something we should be concerned about or excited about? Well, we're going to get into all of that coming right up.
Hey, today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can get involved in a really intentional way with the NFL this season with FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And so if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on all the action than right now. The app is really easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can get involved in a really, really intentional way this NFL season, watching NFL games, rooting for your favorite team, betting $5, and winning $150. FanDuel is the official betting partner of the NFL.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day, and we thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Hey, everydayers, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows, Locked On NFL, Locked On NBA, Locked On MLB. It's all there for you across every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and hit the subscribe button and be part of the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
John, you mentioned it. Ken Rosenthal reported that the Angels are going to be pretty much set with who they have in their starting nine. And he also said that they're going to pursue a middle of the order bat. So thoughts on that? I know you got something like ready to come out. You're ready to, there's sparking a thought here.
Ken Rosenthal is somebody that I trust for news, and I often like his opinions. But Mike, he's lost me in the last week. His nonsense about the Ohtani privacy, and then all of a sudden the Dodgers contract with Ohtani is the greatest thing for baseball. Like,
right.
You lost me, bro.
Well, and he went after the Angels for taking down the mural like that
Right.
day on Saturday,
Yeah.
which, I mean, I get it was quick. And I get the Angels don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt because their organization has been kind of funky the last few years. But I mean, it's like I loved what somebody tweeted. They said, it's like keeping a picture of your ex-wife and the wedding photo on your mantle. You're going to take that down as soon as it's announced that you're divorced. Like you're going to take that down when she leaves. Right.
So he's lost me this last week. Honestly, a lot of trusted reporters have lost me this week. And so that just bringing up Kenny Rosenthal, it just reminded me of that. Now, when he says that, the Angels are open to adding position players, he's talking about like, could they possibly use a DH? And then he brought up the phrase, or he brought up the fact that like Trout and Rendon can DH. And when he says the lineup is pretty much set, I guess that is concerning to me because these Angels certainly need another bat. I believe that. When I think about who's out there, you've got in the outfield, you've got Trout, Adele, Moniak, and Ward. Probably Moniak gets more time over Adele. There might be a platoon situation there. I think about the infield and the depth there. You have to have somebody to back up Rendon at third base. And if it's Rengifo doing that, well, then his third base defense better be really strong coming into the season because he's not somebody I would trust over at that spot. Second base is definitely his best spot. They haven't tried Drury over at third yet, even though he does have some playing time over there. I'd have to go and see just exactly how good he's been over at third base defensively. But to say that this lineup is pretty much set, it does make me nervous, Mike, because I'd like to see another big bat in this lineup. And I hate to say it because I know I'm going to get some heat for this, but I think about Cody Bellinger and I think about his ability to play the outfield and first base. Now I know he's a lefty and I understand that him playing over at first base in place of Shonowell when Shonowell needs a day off, because you're going to use Bellinger in the outfield, right? He's got the arm of he's got a rocket for an arm out there. There's your Seinfeld reference. But I know he's due for regression. I know that what he did with the Cubs will not sustain, but it will still be pretty good. And you're replacing a left-handed power bat in Ohtani with another left-handed power bat who you kind of hope can sustain what he was able to do. Even if he is due for some regression, it comes out to about 270 batting average. So I just don't know. I know that I was nervous about Cody Bellinger and it felt very much like an arty move.
Yeah.
And at this point, I feel like it's even more of an arty move because he's going to rage spend because he didn't get Ohtani back. Right. I just don't want Belly to become our Rendon. Now he is 2 years younger than Rendon was when he got signed. But I feel like the Angels are missing somebody in this order. Mike, I know Jorge Soler is a name that's come up, but he would sort of be a DH only. Do you think the Angels need to go with a DH only kind of person?
I think they need flexibility, John. I think that they need a whole lot of flexibility because they can put Rendon, Trout, and even Logan O'Hoppe at that DH spot. And
I like that. I
like it a lot, which is why I was kind of surprised that Stassi was traded. I know it maybe been a money-making move or a money-saving move, but having Stassi catch and then having O'Hoppe be DH or having Theis catch and having O'Hoppe DH, because he showed that he's got a great bat, I thought would have been the most appropriate way to go. Having three catchers on the roster, I get, can kind of clog up your roster a bit. Johnny, here's what my mind is at right now is Ohtani is a game changer even as he leaves the Angels because their approach right now is very different than last year.
Yeah.
And this approach, although it's concerning because we're looking at this team going, well, they need some help. I wonder if the approach is finally like, we're going to see what Joe Adele can do. We're going to see what Rengifo can do.
That's what I've been wanting.
Right. And I think this is where the tension lies for Angel fans, especially for our everydayers. And for me specifically, like we want this, but we have to acknowledge like this is probably a 68 to 73 win team, right? They're not going to be competitive. And so we have to walk into this season understanding that. Is that okay? I think it's okay because we're not going to get buttercupped. We're not going to get let down, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to have these expectations of trying to get to the playoffs and get Ohtani and Trout to the playoffs and then not get there. We're walking in going, we really don't know what this team can do. We're thinking 68 to 73 wins. So if they get to 78, they get to 80, they get to 85, whatever it might be, we're going to be like, whoa, this is great. Why didn't we do this before? And then there's going to be the fans that will say, we've been saying this for so long, right? All of us will get really loud.
I've been saying.
Right. I said that a long time ago. But it really, it's intriguing to see what they're going to do. And I think moving into this season with this roster pretty much set, we just have to make sure that our expectations are not going to be that they're going to be battling for that third wild card spot or for the AL West. Now, will Artie want that? I don't think so. I don't think that Artie wants to have a team where he's kind of quote unquote rebuilding. I think that he wants to be competitive or at least pretend that he's competitive, right? I'm going to go get this big bat or get that big arm. And so I would anticipate some sort of move. I don't know if they're going to make the huge splash, the $300 million guy, but I think that they are going to get a couple of arms where, that's good. Or we're going to go, ooh, that's interesting. Like the guy that signed with the Giants, Lee, I thought that would be a great fit for our team. And then he signed 6 years in San Francisco. So good for him. But those are the types of moves, if we make big moves, that I think the Angels make this offseason. Again, if they make a big move.
Well, and as you were talking, I heard you say roster. I heard you say arms. I heard you say a different variation of different things. Now, remember, Ken here is talking about the 1 through 9, the hitters. And to be honest, like there's a lot I want to see out of these hitters. I think if the Angels make any moves, it's got to be for the bullpen.
Yeah.
It's got to be for at least one more starting pitcher. And so the hitting side of things, I'm kind of with you. Like it's the least concerning part of this team for me. Would I like to see an impact bat? Absolutely. Would I also like to see what the Angels can get out of Rengifo when he starts every day? Yeah, as a fan of the Angels, yes, I'm curious to see what happens because you look at Eric Ibar. It wasn't until Ibar started playing everyday shortstop that he became Eric Ibar.
Right.
And a pretty good hitter at that too. So I am interested to see what happens with our young guys when they finally have some consistency. I said it before, Mike, this is the year for the Angels to get some answers in terms of what they have. Like you give Joe Adell all the opportunity this year, and if it doesn't work out, then you move on. But if you find something in him and he does well, this is the year to find that out. So yes, I'm with you. There's part of me that wants to see these Angels add somebody impactful. At the same time, let's get some of these questions answered and stop beating around the bush here and figure out what the Angels have on their roster.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Logix Credit Union. We know that you come to Locked On Angels to get a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, and I've got my hottest take of the day right here. The best lineup in the LA area right now is the lineup of auto loans with Logix. They start with the top of the lineup with one of my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loan. You can count on these guys to give you low rates, which we need right now, and save you big time money. Next up, they got an exciting rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. And then rounding out their lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car a whole lot faster. I know that there's a lot of hot takes, again, from John and I here on Locked On Angels, but the hottest take is the lineup that Logix brings you. So visit your local Logix branch in the LA area and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's Logix, Logix banking.com/car.
Mike, our last conversation of the day really goes back to what we were just talking about, but in terms of the pitching staff. Angels, they need a pitcher, and I truly believe that they need to go out there and make a splash either in the free agent market or through the trade market. Now, recently Rosenthal reported that the Halos are in on Tyler Glasnow, Corbin Burns, Shane Bieber, and last week we actually had a full episode of those three plus Blake Snell. So go and check that episode out if you have not done so already, because we really did a deep dive into who would be the best fit for the Halos. And the most attractive piece, according to track record, according to the stats, is Corbin Burns. Now, he's going to cost the Halos some players, and there's even word out there that the Brewers probably aren't interested.
They're hesitant
in trading him.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Glasnow is also interesting because he's got some strong numbers, Mike. I know that he has had some injury issues. He's also going to cost $25 million this upcoming season. But look, that is an instant ace on your staff and a front of the rotation guy. The last two players, this one's a little bit of a wild card. Marcus Stroman, of course. Now, we did talk about Shane Bieber last week, and we also mentioned that his numbers kind of indicate that he's due for regression. He is on his, like, if you look over his last few seasons, you can see that he's trending toward his expected stats, which aren't great. They're not bad, but they're also not what he's been putting up recently. And each year, Bieber is trending towards those stats. Now, I think we did talk about Marcus Stroman in a Fan Mail Friday a few weeks ago.
We did, yeah.
Because we made that comparison of, do you want a more expensive Tyler Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Because his game is very similar to Tyler Anderson. Obviously, Stroman executes it much better than Anderson did last season. So, Mike, here's the big question. I personally think that the Angels, I would love to see them go after Corbin Burns. I know it's going to cost something. But, Mike, if we go back to our last conversation about the hitters and the Angels are trying to figure out what they have in their 1 through 9, what about the rotation that they have of Detmers and Sandoval and Silseth and Canning, and then even letting Tyler Anderson figure things out? I mean, that's a starting 5 right there. And then they have some depth in Davis Daniel and Kenny Rosenberg and Jose Suarez. But he's depth, let's be honest. He's a depth piece. He's the guy you go to when somebody's hurt. Mike, if the Halos are going to either go out and make a big splash or they're going to let the kids play, so to speak, is there anything wrong with the rotation that they have now?
Johnny, I the question I always wrestle with is does the experience that they get this season, is that what's holding them back? Right? And so we give Sandoval a chance to just pitch through the whole year. We give Silseth a chance to pitch through the whole year. Good, bad, and ugly, right? Does that help them? And I think that where we can maybe overestimate is that, oh yeah, of course it'll help them because that experience is so invaluable. But what makes that experience invaluable is not them going through it. What makes it invaluable is when they evaluate it. And I think that one of the keys that is different this season versus last season is that this coaching staff is so much better.
Oh, 100%.
And with Barry Enright there, it's so much better and much improved over last season.
Yeah.
And so I would lean in the direction, if we're going to go into this next season with no expectations and we're going to let the kids play, I would lean in that direction with this starting rotation, because I'm confident that not only would they get experience, but they're going to have somebody in Barry Enright who's going to go, did you know what you did wrong there? And did you know what you did right? And let me tell you. And so evaluated experience is much better than just regular experience. Oh, I went through it. But when you evaluate it and learn from it, that's what makes you better. And I mean, we saw Reed Detmers do it himself last year. He's like, oh, when I do this with a slider, right? Yeah. Even Griffin Canning, I worked through that one inning, and Barry Enright noticed, like when he was playing the Diamondbacks, he gave a bunch of runs and then he fought to get to like 7 innings. Like they're already learning.
And on the flip side of that, you have Patrick Sandoval, who, you know, can't control his temper when he's out there. And yes, he goes through that, but who's there to like say, look, dude, you got to clean it up.
Yes.
Look, dude, you got to figure it out. Like you can't get hot because look at the way it affects you. Like it doesn't seem like there was any of that last year. You know, when we first started on Locked On Angels, we had about a year's worth of podcast experience behind us doing our own show. And then we got brought on to the Locked On Podcast Network. And Jeff Carr over at Locked On Reds is the one who runs the MLB channel. And Mike, right out of the gate, like we would do our first few shows and he would meet with us and give us feedback. And we have said like, hey, if you've got criticism, like, please give it to us because we want to know it. And then we want to pivot and we want to get better. I think baseball players have that same desire. They want to know how they can get better. They want to know how they can pivot, but somebody's got to give it to them. And there was nobody on this staff, maybe Phil Nevin. I want to give Phil Nevin some credit. I think Nevin tried to do the best that he could in that regard. And we saw some instances of that where he's, given the pat on the back and whatnot, but it's not enough. You need your Enrights and you need your Johnny Washingtons and you need your Ron Washingtons to really drill in to the fact that these guys are going out there and getting the experience. And then like you said, experience without evaluation is useless. It doesn't help to just get the experience. You got to have somebody out there to help you tweak things, to help you correct things, to help you do more of what you do better. And I think with that coaching staff last season, they didn't have that, right?
Right. And so if they're going to let the kids play, they need to make sure that these kids are getting the experience and then evaluating that experience, because that's the only way that they're going to get better. Getting rocked and then getting taken out in 3 innings is not great, right? But if you get rocked,
you went through that, buddy.
But getting rocked and then having somebody that you can go, well, what happened? What was I doing? Oh, your release point, your extension, all of that stuff is so necessary. So if they're going to let the kids play, they have to have really great evaluative tools to help them to get better. And if that's the case, then I'm okay with letting the kids play and not going and getting a major arm. And I'm okay with this team figuring it out in 2024.
Yeah, there's a delicate balance of how much do you let these guys figure it out and how much do you want to remain competitive?
Yeah.
And I think that's the tension that the Angels sit in, because Artie wants to be competitive because he wants to make money. He wants people to show up to the ballpark.
Yeah.
And you've already lost your golden goose this last season. So you better have a competitive team to make people want to come to the ballpark, Artie. And so I think that's the tension that we sit in here, Mike, is can this team be competitive with letting the kids play? It seems like all indications are that they don't want to not be competitive. They want to stay competitive. Mike, if they're going to make a move for a Corbin Burnes and it's a 1-year thing, that can't be the end of it. They have to make a move and a trade knowing that they're going to be able to extend a Corbin Burnes or a Tyler Glasnow, or even signing a Blake Snell. I know that that's not the most exciting thing, but they have to have a long-term vision if they're going to make an impactful move for the starting rotation. It can't just be a one and done. They have to be able to extend or get somebody on a long-term deal, whoever they bring in.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. And everydayers, remember, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. So go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
Hey friends, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Hop in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button. Really helps us out more than you know, and it personally helps Mike and I. So if you want to give back to us in any sort of way, hit that like button, leave a comment, and even if it's just like a Go Angels or Go Halo Bros, we would love that. Mike, what do we have on deck for Friday's show?
Well, Johnny, money is always an issue with the Halos, and we saw it come up again with the coaching staff. Clint Hurdle was rumored to join this coaching staff, and now he's not.
Yes.
And it's all due to money, and we'll talk about why that is another indication that this team is still stuck in its penny-pinching ways. That's Friday on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us on Friday for that one. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
You said golden goose, and so it reminded me of, we bring in the golden goose, Miles Finch. We bring him in.
We bring him in.